All right, let's have a quick conversation. And this video, I hate saying this ever, but this video is for entertainment purposes only. 100% entertainment purposes only, okay? So, I've explained to you how the fifth dimensional geometry pulled through the fourth, and by the presence of the fallen angels, they brought the fourth dimensional geometry with them, which created the two-dimensional overlay. I've explained that the difference between the etheric beings, angels, what we call angels, Luciferians, fifth dimensional ascended masters, what we call Luciferians are the ones that came down, right? I told you about Yadabaoth and all that in the other videos. So I've explained that the difference between the Anunnaki and an angel is alignment. So one loses its source, its connection to God, and can no longer ascend, go back up to the fifth dimension where they're from. Whereas you have some that kept their tether and went back and forth. That's why you see the halos above people's heads, because the halo is actually a portal. These beings stayed in Shambhala, and they built the city of light there. That was only there, though, up until around the last third part of Atlantis, it started to ascend. And that's because that timing was around the exact same time frame that we see the empire start to come alive, technology start to come alive. And all this coincided right around the same time. So I was doing research, and that was when I discovered, oh crap, we start to see all these changes happening in Atlantis, and then at the same time, Shambhala is ascending. So it's essentially protecting itself up in the fifth dimension, because, and we think of dimensions, we think of, let me just put it this way. Every dimension is based upon the toroidal sphere that it's in. So like when we talk about any other realm, or each realm has its own firmament, and the dimensionality is determined by the sphere that you live in. So like I've explained energy signatures as well, that every single energy signature would be different at the center of a planet, and like ours is a Kurzweil, right? Or that's elongated, or we also call it the golden ratio. So they become Anunnaki, right? They fall into the lower chakras, the lower behaviors, and essentially they, like I explained, a rubber band, it gets completely disconnected, pulled from the fifth to the third, and it just snaps at some point, dissolves, because it's completely opposite of what the fifth dimensional frequency is. So these beings do mate with humans, but it's not the giant Nephilim like you think of Nephilim. Essentially, they were the Nephilim that they write about, or that we see in the Bible. The Inuna ruled for thousands of years above land, right? But cataclysms kept coming, and so they started building different cities under the ground. And when they did that, they kept getting wiped out still, because cataclysms, different ones kept happening, and they were wiping out entire cities underneath. And so the Inuna didn't exist here prior to the fall. Because the Inuna are the Anunnaki, and the Anunnaki are the fifth dimensional etheric beings that fell down into form. So they finally settle in Agartha, because when there's big cataclysms, the polar gate doesn't get affected by it. That's where Agartha is. And that is where Admiral Byrd flew, and all of a sudden he flies into this city, and they start talking to him, and then they control his landing down. He spends like a day or two there, then comes back, and then we send all this military over there, and they wipe us out in like 20 minutes, and we go back with our tail between our legs. Then later we see a bunch of flying discs, UFO type of looking things that were over the White House it was like back in like the 40s or 50s or something, but they were up there visible to everyone for a while. That's what people call the breakaway technology, and that was kind of them saying, hey, we can take you out anytime we want, after we had sent all the fleets up there to Antarctica. In the Nag Hammadi library, the Apocrypha of John, when Jesus is talking to John, he starts talking to him about the archons, and he says they are the rulers, the authority on land, right? They're the ones that the Anunnaki left in charge to run the land once the Anuna went underground, which is the same thing. Anunnaki, Anuna, same thing. So these are the priest kings that they put in power in all these different places all over the world. And that's why they say they have the divine right to rule, because they were put there, number one, but number two, like I told you before, they're keeping the same bloodlines. That's why they don't commingle with other people, because they want that old blood in them. And again, that's why I showed you all through Europe and all kinds of different things that they had the elongated skulls, and they would wear the pointy hats and everything like that to try to hide that from the public. So archons are literally the presidents. They are the principalities of governments and things of that nature. And so when I've been talking about the Metatronic system the whole time, today's Metatronic system of religion is a Z to the I to the ism. And that is what all of the presidents and rulers of the world follow. And even our own countries has plainly stated that this is what he is as well. And they can be any religion. So it could be a Judaism Zionist, it could be a Christian Zionist. It doesn't really matter. So why can't we go to Antarctica? Well, that's where the Agarthans are. That's where the tall whites are. That's who the Anuna are. So they're getting all their orders from Agartha, and that is the control system they use. And what they do with everything in our reality and the way that they've structured it is to siphon off energy from us. And that will be what my next video is about. But I wanted you to understand the structure, why everything is the way it is, how it's all set up, and the history of it, so it would make sense to you when you were thinking about why the hell is everything so screwed up? Because they have it that way on purpose. Because that is what allows them to siphon the energy. And in the last video I did talking about the mimicry, the tall whites are the ones that are doing the mimicry. And like I said, we think reptilian because they're cold. They're living in all the lower chakras, right? But their God is technology, because they can't beat us. They can't ascend, so they try to do it through technology. And that's why you have the AI, the meta worlds, all that kind of stuff, because if we all go into technology and, you know, essentially like go into another reality, right? Upload our consciousness, then we are on even playing ground. But they hate us because they ain't us, because we can ascend and they can't. That's why all the technology is being pushed everywhere right now. It's because that's where it comes from. It all comes from Agartha. And they have been developing this stuff for, you know, tens of thousands of years, or however long ago the exact flood was. Maybe it was at like 7,000, 8,000. I don't know off the top of my head right now. But so that's what's actually going on everywhere. And in my next video, I'm going to show you guys how we fight it. And it's by becoming aware of actually what's happening. But I'm almost certain that no one's ever actually told you, because if I hadn't read just a few certain books and put things together in my head, I wouldn't have ever been able to figure it out. But anyways, that'll be on my next video. Have a great day. Namaste.